Here talking about a new study about dads. Dads,
right.
How important the involvement they have with their children really helps them develop. Dr. JJ is here. And parents on the sofa, parents sitting here, and we're so excited to hear about this study. Welcome. What's this study about?
So literally, in this week's Pediatrics, there's just been a surge of interest about fathers, especially in the last couple of decades. But, you know, the whole complexion of fatherhood has changed since 1965, when we've had greater role models out there and more dad involvement. So what the study looked at is every piece of social research that had to do with how dads influence, in a positive way, their children's health, their children's outcomes. And it was very, very interesting, very revealing.
So are we seeing more of a shift in dads that stay home than were in the past?
There is no doubt about that, especially since our recession, because so many dads were unemployed. So whether by choice or by unemployment, many dads landed in their homes and had to interact with their kids. And it was found to be a very positive thing for many, many fathers. And actually, single dadhood, and I thought of you, Mark, when I read this, rose from 1.2 million to 2 million single dads over the last 10 years.
Double.
Wow.
And stay-at-home dads from 2002 to 2013 grew from about 98,000 from census data to almost 200,000. So there's a huge group of single and stay-at-home dads.
It's a little bit of a stretch in the connection, but is there a health benefit connection between these?
There's so much data that is just so phenomenal, and its impact on many things. So, for example, in small kids, language development has been found to be much more improved with dad's intervention rather than with mom's, because moms tend to use the safe words that kids typically use every day, whereas dads come home and they have new novel words. So the vocabulary of children builds tremendously. Also, if mom has depression, if she has anxiety, if she has any comorbid conditions that might negatively impact a kid, if dad is present, whether he lives in or out of the household, his impact to compensate for that is positive as well. And what I found so fascinating was the role of dads in play, because dads tend to be much more raucous and physically involved with their babies and their older children.
Oh my gosh.
So we're
oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. So moms create safety and balance.
You're giving me stress, Dr. JJ.
No.
But wait, can I go back to a stat? Because you said the second stat was 98,000 stay-at-home dads.
189,000 now.
189,000 now? Or,
yes.
Or was there 2 million?
I thought there was 2 million.
And single dads have gone from 1.2 to 2 million.
Right, okay. Right. Just wanted to get those numbers correct.
So they're a little bit different.
Okay.
And how are dads, how do they change as the child gets into the teen years?
Well, I think in a positive way, again, dad's involvement, whether they're in or out of the house, reduces risk behaviors in both sexes, especially in males. There's reduced teenage pregnancy. There's actually reduced smoking, and there's reduced depressive disorders and emotional acting out. So again, an involved father doesn't necessarily have to be a husband or in the household to be very effective in his relationship with his kid. And back to the play question, it's so interesting that kids are much more exploratory and independent when a father plays with them in that raucous fashion than the mom who creates a safe haven of safety and calming.
I will say this. My dad did both. My dad did both very effectively. I grew up with a generation where my dad, I knew he loved me, but he never spoke the words. Right. But he was also the guy who'd say, hey, the belt's on the doorknob.
So you knew.
So there was discipline there, but he would also, I remember this, and I thought my dad was Superman. My brother and I, he would lay on the floor, and he would just lay his arms out, and we would try to hold his arms down, and he would be able to pick us up. And to me, I swear he was like Popeye eating spinach. And that, to me, that rough play with him meant so much. I can still smell the John Deere smell that he would come home, and that metal sort of industrial smell.
And that's positive impact on you even now to this day.
So beautiful.
Right.
So I have a question. You talk about whether they're in the home or out of the home. Is there any, like, if a husband is no longer part of the family directly, number of hours spent? Is there any kind of data with that yet?
Actually, there is. It's number of hours spent in housework and in child care. So there actually is about a tripling of those hours compared to 1965. But that's a big stretch, and that's just
great.
one study. But there is greater involvement just globally over the last several decades.
Helping more. What about you, Kristen? How about you with your husband?
I know you had some misconceptions about him, right?
Just a little bit of a control freak, and I didn't do it on purpose. And I talked to JJ about it. She's like asking me questions like, well, does your husband put him to sleep? Does your husband? And I'm like, no. And so I decided to take a leap of faith and just back up and stop.
So you were doing everything.
I was doing everything.
Him,
and my husband was not doing any of the feeding and whatever. So as soon as I stepped back and chilled out a little bit, my husband did such a fabulous job that my son had such a positive response, went to bed faster, ate more of his food. I'm just like, oh gosh, that's embarrassing.
I know.
So I let it go was the best thing I could have done. So actually, JJ, thanks for the advice, because now it's very balanced.
Yeah, good.
Good. Kim, I know because Jerry, we've talked about this actually.
Yeah.
Jerry,
and you really opened my eyes about because the age difference and how that had such a positive impact.
Yeah.
You would think maybe it would be the inverse.
Right, and especially with you being newly engaged, who knows what the future holds. But Jerry was much older at having, Hunter. He already had 2 grown kids and was the full-time parent, much like Mark. They have a very similar story with 2 children. And so when we got pregnant, many people feel that it's their duty to come up and say, oh, it's going to be awful for Hunter. He's going to have an older father.
Right.
And you know what? Oh, everybody.
A lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Feel it's their
Church,
duty, right?
And they said, he's going to be the oldest dad at the preschool. He's going to be the oldest dad at graduation. And you know what? They were right. They were 100% right. And here's my quick story. Jerry, because he was older, every second he made count. He was at every single solitary, my hand to God, practice of Hunters. He was at every event. He was at and all the other dads who were in their 40s who couldn't do it. They're out working. They're trying to make money for their family. The boys would all come over and say, Hunter, you are so lucky that your dad
Look at
is
that.
at everything. I so wish my
Look at that.
And look how Hunter's
Exactly.
an exemplary young man.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
Ken, what about you?
Well, I had kind of a combo. So the first half of my life, my dad was an Army colonel. And he was in Korea, Vietnam. There he is. It's good old dad. So he was like this hero to me, but he wasn't around. He'd be gone for 3 years at a time, sort of thing.
Wow.
So that was rough. But then, late middle school, he retired. He, luckily enough, retired at 46 or whatever. So my whole second half, he was there constantly. And to echo that, he was an older parent. I'm an older parent.
Yeah.
There is some pluses to that because, I think you're more cognizant of time passing and how important it is.
Yes.
And you just have more flexibility with your schedule.
Yeah.
So that made a big difference to me. And Mike and I are we split things evenly, and we're both very, very hands-on.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I will say, and I talked to Jerry about this, I'm the dad today because of the circumstances that happened in my life. Not too many, but just that there. So dads represent.